Hi. How's everybody? So today you ear crank CLEs. We're going to be talking about contempt. And I'm kind of a one-note cowboy about this, but I think it's important that we talk about it and what it is and how it plays into this whole Richard Allen case. So I got a little lesson for us all. I'm bringing on the porpoise. Hang on. Hello.
Hi there.
How you doing there, bud?
I'm a little bit harried, but looking forward to talking a little contempt because I don't know how it happened, but in addition to becoming the world expert in the narrow little world of Indiana midwifery law, somehow I became the world expert in contempt.
Hang on a second. Okay. This is the first
Indiana
time.
contempt, not.
But no. I don't. You started out with the midwifery thing. So what the hell are you talking about?
Oh, I used to defend. So it
Oh,
used
nope.
to be
Okay.
illegal.
Nope. We can't. But okay.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Nope. So why tell the good people why you've become an expert on Indiana contempt. Or
I don't even remember.
really?
Yeah, I don't. I don't remember any contempt cases that I had. Very good friend of mine who was clerking for a different justice on the Indiana Supreme Court was involved in one of the big direct contempt opinions called Hopping, Hopping.
Uh-huh.
But I do not remember at all why I I mean, for instance, like, my contempt thingy back in February of 2024,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I had to go digging for all the law almost older than dirt,
Oh,
but
okay.
but the propositions were all stuff I knew. I just wanted to, show that show that this is nothing new and it's all pretty obvious. And then, Dave Hennessy put in the bench card at the hearing, and it didn't say anything different from what I was saying.
Okay. So, hello everybody. I'm going to say hello. Hello, Government. Hello, Bugs. Hi, Tammy. Hello, Royal We. Sup. Also, sup, Veronica. Oh, great. DB's here. Thank God. We can get started. So
That's the important thing, right?
No, for sure. Hey, Brooke. How you doing? So what we're going to do is Mandy, sup, also sup. Hello, sup. So we're gonna be looking at. So I know people have had, and I put a link in the description of this live that has a video. It's actually Michael and I talking about contempt and what that might look like in the Richard Allen case within the case. So if you want a primer on that, go back and click on that link, give it a watch. But what we're going to be talking about is what contempt is, why it matters in this particular case with Richard Allen. And we're going to talk about how to hypothetically, maybe kind of, if somebody wanted to write a robust yet succinct information for contempt in the state of Indiana, we have a really decent way of thinking about how to go about that. And we'll be pulling in real world example, but I thought that is that good? Should we start with our bench card, or how do you want to start?
Well, I just want to say, yeah, I mean, bench card we'll get to in just a second. As my contempt thing, he said, and actually the bench card says the same thing. There are two kinds of contempt: direct and indirect. And direct, it's not a complex concept. Direct contempt is stuff that happens right in the presence of the court, and the court doesn't have to do anything. It can just say, "I hold you in contempt," and punish accordingly. Usually that's direct criminal contempt. It's not usually direct civil. But so that's in the presence of the court. Then you can have indirect. So you can have indirect contempt. And
so I have pulled up the bar card, but we'll talk. So keep going.
So indirect contempt is something that happens outside the presence of the court, that the court really, in order to figure out whether there was any contempt, has to take evidence on. That's why it's indirect. It's not in the presence of the court.
Right.
And there are kind of two kinds of indirect contempt. Like in your usual divorce case, right? There's an order to pay child support. Somebody doesn't pay child support. And so somebody puts in an information for indirect civil contempt. And what they want is the child support paid. And and actually, by the way, there's a provision in the Indiana Constitution saying you can't imprison people for debt.
Right.
And the way the courts get around that, which is just, I think, terrible, is they say, "Oh, we're not putting you in jail for failing to pay a debt. We're putting you in jail for not obeying the court order."
Right.
That you pay the debt.
Right.
And so the idea of indirect civil contempt is that you want to coerce somebody into doing something. I mean, and the idea with indirect civil contempt, for instance, if you get thrown in jail, is by complying with the order, you have the keys to your cell.
Right.
So it's remedial. It's you want to get somebody to do something. Now, indirect criminal contempt is when you want to punish somebody.
Yes. Yes.
So there are two kinds, though. So, as I mentioned, there's violating a court order.
So we're talking about direct or indirect right now.
Indirect.
So I'm
indirect. I mean, you could theoretically get direct. You could get direct criminal contempt for violating an order. For instance, the court orders the defendant to sit down, and the defendant won't sit down. I mean, that's an order.
Sure.
And it's in the presence of the judge. Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking at Indiana Code 34-47-3, indirect criminal contempt, right?
Right. So there are going to be two kinds, and McCleland alleged indirect criminal contempt because he couldn't get anything remedial. I mean, that was my point in the contempt thing I filed. It had to be indirect criminal contempt he was alleging, because there was nothing remedial that could be done. So he wanted the folks punished.
Right.
But that was for violating a court order. But there are other things for which you can be held in indirect criminal contempt.
Go on.
And one of them is lying to the court.
Go on.
Basically interfering with look, there are various glosses. I don't have them at the tip of my tongue. But it's basically obstructing the court, interfering with the fact-finding process of the court, basically interfering with the administration of the court.
Right.
um, and how it's supposed to function. So one of those things that you can do to do that is lie to the court.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this case in Ray Nicewinger from the Indiana Supreme Court where
Okay. I'm pulled it up.
yeah, so in Ray Nicewinger, the guy was found in direct criminal contempt for lying about, guess what? Who took some pictures? The guy said, I think it's Nicewinger, said, oh, I took the pictures. It turns out in later testimony that somebody else took the pictures.
Right. Well, that's,
And
yes. So apparently, however, it was not the photographer, but the present with the photographs. Yes. So the Meyer had lied and said that she had taken the photographs. The trial court believes the petitioner lied under oath. Meyer's reasons, blah, blah, blah. So yes. So this is I'm reading from the case law. And it's a 1985 Indiana case about, funnily enough, photos. Go on.
so the judge held Nicewinger in direct criminal contempt, and he appealed, and the Indiana Supreme Court said, nah, that his lying was only became apparent later from somebody else's testimony. So they said that, it may be indirect criminal contempt.
Okay.
And indirect criminal contempt has a whole bunch of procedural safeguards. I mean, you have to have hearings and evidence and all the rest. That's what we had in the contempt case against Andy and Brad, right?
Yes.
And so then fast forward to, I think, 2024, and we have the CK case from the Indiana Court of Appeals. And there was a heap of lying going on in that case.
Right.
And they mentioned Nicewinger.
Yes.
But they also say, we don't have to go to indirect. So CK was found in direct criminal contempt. And they mentioned Nicewinger saying, it could be indirect criminal contempt, but we don't have to go there because the lying was so bad, it was direct criminal contempt.
Right. Yes. But the sort of, if I'm hearing you right, the sort of test was it from Nicewinger?
Well, just the fact that lying can be Nicewinger, that lying to the court, lying under oath.
Yes.
So the lesson from both these cases is that lying under oath, gets in the way of what courts do, and you can be held in contempt for that.
Right. Now, I hate to admit it, but DB has a really good question, because I think, and I think you and I will talk about this because it's something that came up about various immunities that may be available to those involved. And we're talking very clearly about McCleland and Holeman. And the immunity.
There's no immunity.
And can you explain why?
Yeah, it's civil. So prosecutors, have civil immunity when they're acting as prosecutors. But that doesn't mean they have criminal immunity.
Right. So, but when you explained it, when we were talking about it, you put it in a very good way. So we're talking about two different things that we're going to put into our hypothetical information for contempt. And one of them is that putting forward misinformation in a filing to the court, but then also the lying in court. And so the way that you put it to me, and I think it makes a lot of sense, is that when Nick McCleland brought the information for contempt against Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie, he made a false statement in a filing to the court in which he was not acting as a prosecutor, correct?
I mean, that's the argument. He
Right.
wasn't acting as a prosecutor.
Therefore, he doesn't have prosecutorial immunity, is the argument.
That, and to the extent he was involved in the investigation,
Yes.
and was directing the investigation, he doesn't have prosecutorial immunity for that either.
Right. Okay. And then, okay.
At least that's the argument. I mean, there are cases that say as much. I mean,
right. So the immunity thing does not give a person that's in law enforcement or even in the prosecutor's office carte blanche to actually lie to the court. I think that has more to do with statements made in court, but I don't think that any immunity issues apply.
no, I don't think so.
Right. I mean, because this is all, yeah. I mean, I don't think they do. I think that that's a good way to think about it. So let's see. Where did we want to start? Because I have our sort of crank.
Well, I think if you were doing an information, what you'd want to do, so criminal information, you got to think. So if you're talking about indirect criminal contempt, you got to think like prosecutor. And if you think about normal criminal charges and information, Indiana doesn't have a grand jury requirement. Some states do. Prosecutors can just sign something alleging somebody did something.
Right.
You know, they're short and sweet. And so you're thinking like a prosecutor. If you're thinking about an order being violated, you got to identify, you know, with specificity, identify the order being violated, and then with also with specificity, identify the conduct that violated the order. You know, you don't wait till rhetorical paragraph 12 to do it.
So I pulled up a little document that's I'm calling it our hypothetical. And this is, so when I say CLE, I mean crank legal education, which is equals to 0 CEUs. So that's what it's good for. Anyway, so go ahead. So if we're talking, we would be talking about indirect criminal contempt for a prosecutor, Nick McCleland. And again, we're just batting around some hypotheticals.
Well, about specificity, let me also say that, and I think this example I used with you earlier, it's the other thing you don't get to do in a criminal information charging somebody is you don't get to say in a theft, charging somebody with theft, you got to allege what they stole. You can't just say they committed theft. And you don't get to allege that they stole the bicycle and then put on a case that they stole the riding mower.
Right. Which is what we have in the information that Nick filed in January of 2024, when he brought forward that ridiculous abomination to the English language / law, saying that there was indirect or alleging contempt against Andrew Baldwin and Mr. Brad Rosie and his entire basis was that the photos that were quote unquote leaked in October of 2023 were in fact all from the Franks memorandum. He did not put forward anything in that contempt information about the deposition of Holeman, the Holeman deposition, which is what initially and what they claimed at the actual hearing, the contempt hearing, that they knew that the photos came from the defense because it was from Holeman's deposition, and they claimed that he had never seen those before, and did not have possession of those. Therefore, it must have been X, Y, and Z. So what you're saying is that in that filing by McCleland in January 2024, he accused them of stealing a bike, and then got to court and said, no, they actually stole a lawnmower.
Yeah, and it's worse than that because
Ooh, go on. Yes.
it's worse than that because the case they put on didn't even prove that they stole a lawnmower.
Right.
What it actually proves is that the allegation is that they stole something else altogether, which they didn't steal.
Right. So, but that's what we're that's what we're trying to untangle here. So my question is, and I put this to you, is that if in our hypothetical document, we would be very succinct. So number one would be what? False. Because I think that there's a couple things. So the first thing to include would be would it be misrepresentation in a court filing?
Wouldn't be misrepresent. No, the first. I mean, the way I structure it is so we know that Holeman lied about two things. The first most obvious thing that he lied about was, so he testifies, so there is one picture, so I've seen the file, the contempt file, Hennessy's contempt file.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget, I was also counsel of record for Brad and Andy, so it's not like it's not like people are giving me stuff I'm not entitled to.
Right.
And so there is one picture, and Holeman testifies to it. There's one picture of a nude and it's a nude of Libby, and it has both. So her breasts are redacted with a rectangle, and her private parts are redacted with an oval. And Holeman testifies, yeah, we used rectangles, and the defense used ovals, and so we know this came from the defense. Now, first, on its face, that's ridiculous because there's a rectangle on there.
Right.
But second, it is false because I have it from two independent sources who should know.
Well, three.
Three, but two.
Okay.
Well,
I have it on three. I have it on two. You have it on two. Right.
That the defense didn't redact anything.
Right. And I mentioned that before, that actually I spoke to Baldwin and he said, no, they never redacted anything. So I know that firsthand.
And independently, I have spoken to Brad Rosie, and he said they didn't redact anything.
Right. So that's number one. Holeman lied about two things. That's number one, right?
Yeah. So so the first thing is he's lying about the redactions.
Yep.
From which the inference is supposed to come that this came from the defense. I don't know why that's true, because it had both a rectangle and oval, and I can't answer why it has both.
Yep.
And I also can't answer why people weren't screaming about this at the hearing itself. So
we're not addressing that today. That's up to the for the people to answer. Yeah.
Yeah. But the second thing that he's lying about is that he didn't know. I think he says he didn't know about these. He saw these for the first time at his August 2023, August 10th, 2023 deposition. And I think, what? Go ahead.
No, well, what I think I'm going to bring up what he actually said. So I think that my thing has always been that they just straight lied, that they didn't have access to those photos, right? So that's what's in Holeman's the report from his incident report, is that he and Nick, and I'll bring it up, hang on, that the state didn't, which is just stupid. State didn't have photos from Holeman's. I'm just trying to keep this down. Holeman's 8/10/2023 depo. And I know that's absolute bullshit, because Baldwin again confirmed to me that on August 18th, 2023, now we're starting to straddle the line between the Holeman and McCleland of it all. I'll call them the McColmans. How's that? The McColmans did receive, or there was, the court reporter sent a copy of the deposition, and importantly, a copy of the exhibits to Prosecutor McCleland on August 18th, 2023. So now I'm going to step away from that for one moment, and I'm going to bring up Yield. Let's see exactly what he said. So when I pulled up from the report, his original narrative, where he goes on to say, hang on a second, let's move me out of the way. And there's a lot of really good stuff in here, but I'm looking at the part that goes to lying about not having the photos in their possession. Shortly after my conversation with Ms. Kane and Mr. Greenlee, and we'll get to that, I contacted the prosecutor and told him more photos were being released. I described the photo as a side-by-side with Abby. I told him I suspected they were coming from the defense team. Prosecutor McCleland remembered the photo being presented to me by the defense in my deposition. I asked him, and this is again Holeman's original narrative, I asked him if they, meaning the defense, gave him a copy of the photo, and he, McCleland, said no. Right? So this is on 10/12/2023. And so that we know is false, because Nick knew, or should have known, that on August 18th, he received a copy from the court reporter of the deposition plus the exhibits. Right? So that's where and yes, he certainly, that's the most, that's the thing that they leaned into the most, I think, at the contempt hearing, was that I knew it because that was from my deposition, and it's in, we have the transcripts from that. So that was my point number two. So when we're talking about the things that that are 1 and 2 here, is that's my number two. So that's the things that to me that Holeman lied about. But that brings us into the McCleland of it all, right?
Well, I don't think we're finished with Holeman.
Okay, go on. Listen, I'm here. I'm here for it.
So I think he says that he saw them at the deposition on 8/10, but I think at the deposition when he's shown, and I think it's specifically when he's shown the picture of the side-by-side with the asterisk, yeah. I think he says, yeah, I've already seen that. So he'd seen that before.
I'm just typing, seen before.
Deposition, which means if he'd seen it before the deposition, that means it was in, it had to be in some, you know, in in the possession of law enforcement. McCleland, it
Mhm.
may have been in the Murphy report or Click. I
Yeah.
forget who's done the report.
And
And so this idea that it came from the, I mean, it's almost like everybody making fun of the whole Odinism thing, when the whole Odinism thing originally came from law enforcement.
People, please don't tag that person in my chat. I'm not going to do that. No, we're not doing that. Okay. Do not do that. I'm not here for that drama. I'm not interested. So please do not do that. I have no interest. Look, take it somewhere else. I'm not here for that. Okay. No interest. We're doing work. Okay. Moving on.
Hey, Shabooks has a wrench.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So let's get back on track here, please. I don't, and I can't make this any clearer. Absolutely not. I'm not doing this bullshit. So jog on if you need to
Me
be.
neither.
I'm not here for it. It's too fucking serious, man. And I'm sick of people out here talking like somehow this is like, fucking psyop. So don't bring that into my bullshit. All right. Fucking start your own goddamn channel. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Where were we? We were making a point. So if the mods could monitor that, that'd be great.
So I mean, the short of it is, if so, he doesn't. McCleland doesn't allege any of the pictures came from Westerman, but and in fact, you put on the case, when he puts on the case, there is no connection of the pictures he entered into evidence to Westerman.
Right.
And in fact, it looks like they put on completely fake evidence.
Right. And that's why
yeah.
That's why we're going. I'm opening up the direct examination of Holeman when they talk about Exhibit 5, right? And that's the exhibit that you and I, Exhibit 5, and to a lesser degree, Exhibit 6, but Exhibit 5 specifically, because that's the exhibit that we know contains images that were apparently not the ones that Murder Sheet even received, according to their book, but also were not from the defense with the redaction. So that's why we're focusing, I think, in on Exhibit 5. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. At the contempt hearing, I think McCleland said he had. So they show some pictures. I think McCleland said he had more. The number's really interesting. At Hennessy's deposition of Holeman says all the pictures he got came from the murder sheet, and there were 9 of them. The murder sheet in their book lists the pictures they got, and lists the pictures they got, and there were 7.
Right.
And there was also no mention of anything with an asterisk. And we know from Cohen's own words that and again, he could be lying, but from his own words, that he was never asked by Holeman for his pictures.
Right. So I pulled up this piece of, I like to call it a tour de force in reporting. I can only aspire to this level of majesty that Anya and Kevin have put forth in their footnoted, soon to be footnoted, in regards to see Exhibit X. So what they say in their book, and this is from chapter 20 or 33 or some bullshit. Well, first of all, we have two things. We'll address first what they claim the photos were. And the reason that this is important, and the only reason that this is important about the murder sheet, is because they are the sole source for Exhibit 5, which is the sole claim of the photos which were leaked. Okay, so it matters because of that. Certainly it matters, and we can pants them or take a piss out of them all we want, but I think it's important from deciphering what the facts are or what the factiness is here and the disparity, because it does matter, in that they were the only witnesses to provide photos. So they said in their book, of course in the third person, because this is also something interesting, right? So that Holeman said he was already aware of the F tree, that the F tree was out there, that he and McCleland were already aware that the F tree was out there. And so we'll get to that in a minute. But then Kane and Greenlee listed the images they had received. So 1, Libby's body; 2, Abby's body, and then a close-up of Abby's hair; 2 unreleased suspect sketches; the blood-smeared tree; and an image of 2 clothed women covered in sticks that had been lifted from Brad Holder's Facebook account. So that's 7 by my count.
That's what I counted.
Yeah.
Now in the pictures, so in the pictures I have in the contempt file, there's at least one more picture. So there are 2 more pictures.
Yes.
One is a picture of, it's a close-up, and it had appeared on Reddit earlier, of the cross section of what looks like a sawn off stick.
Right.
And we know that one of the branches was sawn off. Anyway, that's kind of what it looks like. The other, which they don't mention, is a picture clearly of a computer screen, because it's kind of the woods. I can't tell whether there's anything, just the copy I have is so bad, but clearly visible in it is a hand cursor. It is clearly the picture of a computer screen.
Yes. I've heard this.
I mean, it could be a picture. Look, it could be a picture of a screenshot it could be a picture of a screenshot. But again, none of these pictures look like pictures of pictures. And I want to say, I know what a picture of a picture looks like. In another case, some of you may be following it, Chris Bynum's case up in Gary. We were given access to the prosecutor's file, and we took very good, very careful pictures of crime scene pictures that were not entered into evidence, that were in the prosecutor's file. And they're very good pictures, but they are clearly pictures of pictures.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, Mitch Westerman standing there taking however many pictures he took was not taking pictures that would not have been clearly pictures of pictures.
Right.
And by the way, if you had pictures of pictures and you're alleging the leak, and you actually have them, I mean, it's like the evidence that doesn't show up is what makes you ask the questions, right? If you've got the pictures of pictures that look like pictures of pictures, you put them in evidence. You don't put these other things in.
Well, and so yes. And so again, so I go back to so we're, you know, this, it's so hard to talk about this because we run into this idea of, and I don't think we can maybe necessarily get into it, but false information, like false reporting, you know, because when I see, and this is something that would have to be hashed out by a special prosecutor or an investigator down the road to look at potential, like the disconnect here between the main witnesses, which are Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee, with these photos, and what is reported in the initial report. And the initial report that Holeman filed is that there was that he immediately knew. And I'm looking at it again here, and this is again original narrative 10/1, right? Or I'm sorry, 10/12/2023 on Thursday. And we'll get, you know, we'll get into the timing here in a second because I think it makes sense too. Because I think this matters too from a contempt perspective, is when they found out about the quote unquote leak, etc. And if that's wrong, you can tell me. But so this says on Thursday, 10/5/23, sometime after 8 a.m., I received a phone call from Prosecutor McCleland. Prosecutor McCleland told me he'd received a phone call from Becky Patty stating that crime scene photos from the Delphi double homicide investigation had been released on social media. Becky told him a picture of a tree with blood on it has been released, and the person who released it said they have more. I want to stop there for a minute because that is the only photo that has been alleged to be released to the public at all in this investigation. There was no massive leak. There was none of that. This was somebody put up an F tree, I think, in a Facebook group. Okay. Becky became aware of it, whatever. Becky told him that picture of a tree with blood on it had been released. And sometime shortly after that, I was contacted by Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee. Okay, so let's check out McCleland's story for 1 second. And I hearken back to Shadow of the Fridge, where
No, harken back first to the contempt information.
Ours?
No, theirs, McCleland's, where he says he became aware, whatever the language is, in early October.
Right. Oh, he became aware in early October. So now we know that, right? So he's given us, let me go back to my, these people.
And
Okay.
he says that in the contempt information signed under oath.
Yes. Yeah, he does. And that matters a lot. So, so here again in chapter 33, the murder sheet, who again are the only people to provide any information to the cops whatsoever about this. And when I say any information, I mean actual tangible photos, because we know that none were obtained from any other sources, as per the hearing. So they are laying out how they found out, supposedly, and then they go into this interesting tidbit about when McCleland found out, right? So they had reaching the prosecutor while he was barbecuing with friends, right? Her granddaughter's blood was all over Facebook. McCleland was scrambling to figure out what had happened. Everyone was trying to figure out how Cohen had access to Discovery. So I guess McCleland was barbecuing on the morning of what do you call it? October 5th. So he must have been having an early morning barbecue.
With friends.
Right. Or maybe Mike Thomas's text was a heads up, right? So this is already out there, right?
Yep.
This was already out there. That Mike Thomas, who was involved in the, who was a law enforcement official, Nick is trying to figure out where the leaks, multiple, right? To figure out where the leaks are coming from. So this suggests to me that
So
Nick knew on
at the latest September 30th.
right. And I went back into some historical data and it was a beautiful, this is from 2023. And if you see here, the 29th and 30th, I'm circling them. I don't know if anybody can see them. Yes, Nick knew something. And I think that we, anyway, but so I'm guessing that he was barbecuing maybe on the 29th or 30th. So he became aware of whatever it was on one of these beautiful 73 degree or 79 degree, partly cloudy, early fall evenings in September. So that's what I'm thinking, right? Does that make sense? Because it sure matches up with reaching the prosecutor while he was out barbecuing with friends.
Well, here's the thing. It's a little bit like the evidence about Weber arriving home after 2:32. And that is there are now two things pointing at it. For Weber, it was both the video, the van, it was both the van video and the FBI subject information sheet, which said his phone started pinging. So here we have two data points. We have Mike Thomas texting Angela at midnight just past midnight on the 1st of October.
Right.
And we also have the murder sheet saying old Nick was at a barbecue when he got a text from Becky Patty.
Yeah.
And they could both be wrong, but it's two things that line up.
And here's the thing about that it could
and
be.
By the way, we know that Wednesday night the 4th. Is it Wednesday night the 4th? Yeah, I think it's Wednesday night the 4th at 9:38. McCleland is finally sending Andy Baldwin the Turco report.
Right.
So he's not out barbecuing Wednesday night.
No. So I'm just putting this in here, McCleland misrepresented when he found
misrepresenting. I mean, that's the nice way of putting it. I mean, I'm sorry, he's just lying.
I know, but if we're filing my hypothetical information for contempt, if I'm filing it in the court, I'm not going to say he was lying because we don't.
No, I'm going to say no. I would say McCleland said this. That was false.
Okay. And then then it would be exhibit A and B, right? And C, or actually, yeah, A and B would be A, the text or a conversation with Mr. Thomas, Mike Thomas, and confirming what he knew or whatever. And then the other one would be C, page X, Y, and Z from Shadow of the Bridge, where the prosecutor was barbecuing, according to the main witnesses to the quote unquote leak. So I think that
and I just want to point out, unless the murder sheet folks are just making that up, they have to have that information directly from McCleland.
correct. Yeah. So, but here's the interesting thing here too is, you know, looking at this and that sort of window of time. Let's say he found out on the 30th. Why, oh, why? If he found, I can't. I mean, there's so many things I want to say, but it seems improbable, the series of events that happened following that happened in the way that Holeman and that Kevin and Anya or Cohen or whoever suggests that they happened. It doesn't seem to be, like they were already is the suggestion then that they were already working to find the leak, and that's why they waited all that time when they were worried about this massive breach that happened?
I cannot explain the behavior here. And that's why, look, you can't, a lot of times, I don't know what really happened.
Let's think like prosecutors.
Yeah, you only want it, so you have to think what you're charging them with, and can you prove that they did it? And yes, I can.
Go on.
So it's provable that what Holeman said about the redactions was false. It was false what he said about knowing this thing was from the defense because of the redactions. It was false that he hadn't seen those before. It was McCleland had to know that testimony was false, and he let it happen. There's at least evidence, it may not be hearsay at this point, but there's evidence that what McCleland said about finding out about these in the leak in early October was false. And it was clear that there was an absolute attempt to mislead the court with all this Westerman stuff. Because, in fact, there's no tie to Westerman about anything and never was.
That's right. And I think that I want to spend a second here talking about the Westerman thing, the Westerman of it all. And again, if I'm thinking like a prosecutor and I'm bringing this, information for contempt, I wouldn't even need the Westerman bit to come into my like it hasn't even come up, because of the actions. No. You know what I'm saying? So, but then further, so what you and I are talking about with the it's not tied to Westerman. If people read and go and reread the transcripts and everything that's out there, they do not establish in testimony or even in the evidence that has been released thus far that there were any photos that drew a direct line from Westerman to Cohen. There just isn't. And even from Fortson. I mean, I haven't seen anything, and I could be wrong about this, and maybe I'm getting mixed up, but I thought the only thing that we knew based on what we have from Exhibit 6, which are the text messages and things from Cohen and Fortson, is that unless there's something in the redacted bits, But then it would have been entered during testimony. But anyway, okay. So I don't even know if there's a connection that Fortson sent more than just the F tree to Cohen. And I'm focusing just on Cohen. I don't care about the SNE of it all. I don't care about anything else outside of it because I'm very narrowly focused. I don't even see any of that in what is being presented as the basis for the investigation by Holeman in his initial incident report. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, you know, the incident report isn't under oath. I mean, and look, there are a whole bunch of things. So if you go to the contempt card,
let me say one more thing. About that. That is all for the whatever investigation would come next, right? So this doesn't make it necessarily into. So this is what goes on if and when an information for contempt or a misreporting or false reporting, that would be down to a special prosecutor or an investigator to look into so that's what my conversation there was about. It's not about what necessarily goes into the information that would be filed against McCleland and Holeman. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I mean, look at McCleland's information. It included no exhibits, no proof of anything he was alleging.
No, it was idiotic.
It was just information.
Yep.
And that's fine. I mean, you can do that.
And can you though? Because Kenya.
Yeah, I mean, you can, and you know, you wait for the hearing. It's in direct contempt, and so you know, yeah, you wait. I mean, when you're filing criminal information, I mean, there's a statutory requirement that you include witnesses on the information, but no, there's no requirement, but so what I think we're saying, you're saying is that, and I agree, there are things that are provable now, and there's other stuff that whoever comes on to, so these things get filed, as the bench card says, they get filed in a separate cause number. The miscellaneous cause number is MC cause number, and they're filed in the name of the state of Indiana. And this is why the whole thing doing the contempt thing inside Rick Allen's case was just
Well,
wrong.
yeah, and so let's. I mean,
but it's hang on, let me finish. It's prosecuted in the name of the state of Indiana. It's a criminal case essentially, and so you know there would be a special prosecutor, and there would be an investigation. And there are things that only somebody investigating it could figure out. We're just taking the words and what we know from, the lawyers and what we know of the exhibits. I mean, what they said was false. What they tried to prove was false. It's really bad.
Yeah.
And the tragedy of it all is that Kyle Fortson committed suicide over something that apparently had nothing to do with him.
Well, and people can have their opinions on that. I could it have been? I don't. Nobody knows why a person.
Oh yeah, I don't know what's going on in his life, but I mean, if it was connected to this at all, which the timing suggested it was just.
Yeah.
But
well, that's one of the tragedies, right? That's one of the tragedies.
Well, only one.
But the other tragedies would be that if all this sorry.
Yeah, for 6 weeks. For 6 weeks, Andy and Brad were distracted by this.
Right. And I think it's important that this is not, and people absolutely hate me for my fence sitting, but it's not fence sitting. It's just, I don't, all I know is that Richard Allen did not get a fair trial. And the beating that the rule of law has taken in this case, meted out by the state of Indiana via the Nick McCleland, the McColmans in this instance, is reprehensible, because, I mean, we aren't doing great here, folks, with yield amendments and due process stuff. So that is offensive. The other thing that is ultimately offensive, and because I do believe that Mr. Allen was deprived his right to a fair trial, is that this was, done in the and with maybe a level of intent. I don't know, or I don't claim to know, but it was done within the body of Mr. Allen's criminal case for the murder of Abby and Libby. Now, I don't know, man. I cannot imagine what it's like to lose your child to a brutal homicide, but I know myself well enough to believe, at least, that if you're pissing around my kid's case with bringing contempt charges and taking the air out of the attention on my kid, I'm probably losing my mind. But that's neither here nor there. But the way that it rolled out and the way that it interfered with Mr. Allen's case, then we go to the next level of who cares. People are like, well, who cares? This is old news, blah, blah, blah. Well, if this proves out, if this bears some sort of fruit legally, then that sets up what is it? The state interference of counsel?
Exactly where I was going to go. Yeah, I mean, it is clearly state interference with counsel. If they cooked up a case, which it's pretty clear they did. They cooked up a case, a contempt case against Brad and Andy for nothing, and in fact, manufactured it. I mean, it's worse than just cooking it up. I mean, they actually manufactured it. And look, I'm not saying that if those are all Frank's memo pictures, right? Yeah, maybe they came from the defense, but they're not pictures of pictures. But they could have come. The court had them. McCleland had them. Hell, we don't know. Gary Baudette was working with McCleland, and remember, there's the Discord thing where Gary Baudette says, Nick McCleland told me to delete everything. I have no idea where these pictures came from.
Yeah.
And by the way, Murder Sheet in their book, at least, they don't say anything about any redactions on the pictures they got.
Nope. They sure don't. Why is everybody telling me that Ange wants a link? Ange wants a link. Is that true? I mean, I thought she was doing dishes. But yeah, Anne should just go live.
I think she wants probably to say something about the Mike Thomas text.
Okay. All right. Everybody's okay. She's cool. She's cool. She's cool. Okay. Yeah. No, and I think, and I'm sorry I haven't been monitoring chat, but I can't do both very well. So I'm sorry if I missed all everybody's alarm. But again, and it's the interference of counsel. So when people, there's a shitload of drama going on out there, right? And I think rightfully so in some of the cases, some of the people that are looking into this, but ultimately this matters because, in my opinion, this is something that is actionable now. So let's talk about that. So we've only talked about a very few things that we have talked about before. But talk to me a little bit about the the process of this kind of filing into this case, how that would happen, and is that something that needs to wait for the appeal, or is it something that needs to wait?
No, it doesn't need to wait. No, it doesn't need to wait. And so even being the world expert on Indiana contempt,
Right.
I'm still looking into whether you file into the case where the contempt happened, and then the judge issues a rule to show cause in a separate case. I found one of those, or whether you just file the contempt information into a separate case.
Well, that's interesting. So, so let's not let the point get lost. I think a lot of people are frustrated. People that actually give a shit about this case, people that actually give a shit about, Mr. Allen or the right to due process, are out here tearing their hair out, not knowing what's going on, not seeing any movement. What you just said is this is something that can be done now. If it is, and who has standing to do that, and we don't have to get into all of that, but this is something that doesn't need to wait. We do not need to, if we can show this, we don't need to wait to file this, which can then keep, to appropriately bring focus back to something that I believe, based on what I've seen thus far, is absolutely indirect criminal contempt of court by Holeman and McCleland. That's my opinion. Right? So that's my opinion.
Well, if proven by actual evidence and at a hearing on the indirect contempt, then yeah, I think so. Look, we're only lining up what people said under oath against what other people have said. So, I mean, McCleland wasn't doing anything more than that either. I mean, it was, he just alleged these pictures came from the Franks memo and then put on this. So,
oh God, I mean, Christ on a cross. It's just, I mean, when you see it, and I think Ange is right, it's not a white whale, Ange. That's a habeas corpus, right? So, but yeah. And for what it's worth, I've been the attorney of record on this case. But that's, neither here nor there.
Well, the other thing is not just the post-conviction claim for state interference with counsel, but if in the course of an indirect criminal contempt proceeding, it were proven that Trooper Holeman was lying about a whole bunch of stuff, the impeachment value of that at a retrial of Rick would be invaluable. It would be tremendous.
Well, what it does is it rightfully cues people into, I mean, okay. Is it Trooper Proctor level? I don't know. But I suggest that there is it feels a whole hell of a lot like throwing a bunch of blood-soaked snow into red Solo cups and chucking them into a Cub food bag. And so, it feels like, because I struggle with this too. So I struggle with this second guessing, like, is this a thing? Can this be a real thing? Is it possible? Can somebody be so horrible? The answer is yes. And we've seen it happen, right? So we've seen that happen certainly with the Karen Reed trial and the rot, the absolute rot that was in at least one section of the Mass State Police. And I think I think that there is a level of rot in this case that has not been appropriately addressed, because you have sycophant water carriers lauding two of truly the most deplorable individuals of the McColmans of it all, and giving them major awards, right? So I think that putting the focus back on the fucking lies and the impeachment value of something like this, it is incredible. It also would probably get McCleland completely off any retrial if there were to be one, right? And Holeman would just sit up there and look like that would throw everything he ever touched into question, I would think.
I would hope.
Or could.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Holeman's so DB again.
I think the thing, I mean, you kind of mentioned it, but I think I think it's important to emphasize also, and we may have already been there, and it's maybe already be clear to everybody who's watching. There has yet been no evidence that there was any massive leak.
No, absolutely zero. None. That's a fairy tale, I believe. I believe that's a fairy tale that was leveraged. So, yeah, and certainly, so there's a certainly that was leveraged to make it sound like there was some massive breach. Well, you know what the breach was? Do you have any idea what it was, Mr. Ausbrook?
I actually really don't. I mean,
I do. Do you want me to tell you?
Holeman. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you were actually ding, ding, ding.
Well, Murder Sheet sent Jerry Holeman 9 picks. We don't know really where they came from. They probably came from Cohen, but I don't know where Cohen got them.
Who can say? Who can say? Because I've extracted.
But we don't even know that the 9 picks. We don't even know that the 9 picks. We don't know that the pictures that were entered into evidence as Contempt Exhibit 5 at the hearing were even related to where the pictures had anything to do with the pictures Holeman got from the murder sheet. We just don't.
Correct. Well, exactly. Right? Exactly. So I extracted this. I extracted 3 pages from Holeman's supplemental, look, I can't provide this 33-page document, and people can take a piss out of me if they want to, but you can go fuck off. I've extracted 3 pages from this.
That's my fault.
It's not a fault. It's just what it is, and they have to suck it up.
It's just me doing that gatekeeping thing, right?
Right. Well, because lawyer. So this is I do want to talk about this supplemental report because the story gets refined a bit. If you remember when we were pointing at the original, and I know none of this is sworn and all this stuff, but this tells us a whole lot about what they did and did not do in the quote unquote investigation. And I want people to remember that Murder Sheet put out their first episode, right? And went on Fox 59 on October the 14th, I believe. So they had this whole thing shoe leathered by between the 5th and the, I don't know, 14th, I guess. So they had this all figured out. But they actually, on October 5th, according to Jerry Holeman, gave him all of the information, connected everything back to Holeman. It is their word and their word alone. And that is actually in the transcripts of the contempt hearing. That's it. So, right. I'm just pulling this up now, and this is I'll give it to All Eyes or whoever, but this is just 3 pages from Holeman report, and this is the narrative, supplemental narrative. On the 16th of October 2023, on Friday, 10/6/2023, I was contacted by Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee. They confirmed the information that they received from Mark Robert Cohen was coming from Robert Fortson. Ms. Kane told me that Mr. Cohen had sent them screenshots of his conversations with Mr. Fortson. They both told me that Mr. Cohen was willing to talk with police, and he sent them everything he had for them to turn over to me. Thoughts, Michael? That Cohen sent everything over to Kevin Greenlee and Anya Kane in order to turn it over to Holeman.
Yeah, I don't even know what sent all what over to Greenlee and Kane.
Right, but I guess my larger point is, sir, you're an ISP detective. Go detect. Why are you allowing? You should go extract his phone. Yes, you shouldn't take somebody's word for it. Am I missing something?
You know,
It's hard to say, right?
what's hard to say for me is why he doesn't. I mean, if you're detecting, why? And again, I don't know what happened. I only know in Cohen's own words that he was never asked for the pics by Holeman.
Yeah.
Why isn't Holeman saying, "Send me the pics"? I would want to be looking at the metadata on those pics.
You bet. Yes. So he goes on to say that, I made arrangements.
And by the way, hang on.
Mhm.
They got to Westerman's iCloud account.
Yes. Mhm.
And as far as I know, they didn't find any copies of any of these pictures in his iCloud account.
No, they did not. They found weird chats with Baldwin about fantasy football leagues and certainly some chat about the case, but that's not in violation of shit. And the people out there saying that's a violation are just straight dumb and just lying to you. So yeah, there was nothing there. Fortson's phone was given back to his wife, I believe. I don't know. And I mean,
these people, the response, I just know what the response of McCleland and Holeman would be. Oh, we were just mistaken.
Right. But then that's when you have to pull the ripcord on this whole thing, because this, I think the fact that Holeman, or I'm sorry, that McCleland really thought he was pulling a fast one by bringing this into Mr. Allen's criminal trial. And I think what that is going to do in this situation is cause require an outside arbiter, right? So he's not going to be able to. I mean, Gold can rule on it, right? I mean, so what? Okay, I don't know what I want to ask. I wanted to ask, I guess, what happens when and if this is filed, right? Because
What happens when and if it's filed is the judge is supposed to issue a rule to show cause. I mean, you look at the bench card, so a written response can be filed, and if that's satisfactory to the judge can say, okay, see you later, this is over, or you set it for a hearing.
right, and it would have to go to Goal, right?
Well, that's the interesting question that I said I really don't have an answer to yet. Whether you file it in Rick Allen's case number, in Rick Allen's case, for the judge to issue a rule to show cause in a separate cause number, or whether you originally file it as an MC. Now, this bench card seems to say that you originally file it as an MC. I saw a case where the judge, in a case, issued a rule to show cause in a separate case. And so, yeah, the world expert doesn't have an answer to that yet. I'm working on it.
Right.
So but then there's the second question. If it's filed in, a separate MC cause, is it filed in Allen County or Carroll County? The hearing was in Allen County.
Yes. Right.
But the contempt information was filed in Carroll County.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't, I think what you do is file, make your best choice. And, if it gets dismissed, you refile differently.
So yeah, I guess that's because I assume that it will get either ignored, made fun of, whatever, right?
Yes, I've been there's been a lot out there worse with me.
Controversial?
Worse than simply making fun of me. So I'm not too worried.
No, but my point is, I don't give a shit if people make fun of you or me. But what's plan B? Because there has to be a plan B with any of all of this, right? So there has to be a plan B. So what is there? Can you refile, or once it's ruled on, then what? Is that
yeah,
then? Go ahead.
question.
Because we have to be ready for that.
Well, so the way the statutes read, if you're talking about just violating a court order, you don't get a special judge. It should have been filed in a separate case in Rick's case, but you don't get a special judge.
Right.
But this is not about violating a court order. I think the bench card says, and my research indicates, you do get a special judge. And I think you have to get a special prosecutor, and it would be up to the prosecutor to pursue it.
Yes, so this says it does require new separate cause of action. So I'm looking at the bench card, indirect criminal contempt. So basically, Gold just ignored this, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, it's all over. It's all over my contempt thingy that this had to be filed in a separate case. And to some extent, maybe I was wrong about filing the contempt information in a separate case.
Mm-hmm.
but at least the rule to show cause had to be issued in a separate case. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know whether like you file in Rick's case and then have the judge issue a rule to show cause, opening up a new cause number. I've never heard of judges opening a new cause number except for this one case I found. I mean, it's kind of the Wild West out there. The only case that I have found where there was an indirect contempt trial inside a criminal case
Mm-hmm.
was when the person who was alleged to have committed the indirect criminal contempt was the defendant himself in that criminal case.
Right. Which would
And
make sense, correct?
I don't think so. I think you still got to file it out. I still think you got look. The lawyer didn't move to dismiss it. I think it still has to be filed outside in a separate case. It's a different thing. All
got it. Okay. But I mean, that at least lends itself to the possibility of being closer to maybe approximately being a little bit more appropriate because it was the person's. This is something completely and totally different, but I take your meaning.
I mean, I think between my contempt thingy and the bench card,
Yes.
Gull knew she could never find them in contempt because that would have been immediately reversed.
Right. Well, and so the bench card, so so this is what we're looking at right now is the bench card. So each and actually Hennessy filed this as an exhibit, I think, is something that's given to judges, is that right?
So yeah, there's what's known as state court. There's an office. It's called State Court Administration, and it's kind of the brain trust for the judges around the state when they've got questions. They, in addition to like consulting their fellow judges, but they can actually. I mean, State Court Administration has manuals and they do trainings and yeah, they kind of advise advise the judges, and this is like a bench card. This is what they, the summary, something a judge can look at. Okay, what do I do about this?
So, okay. But that's also basically a roadmap. Oh, there's a ambulance. Okay.
I want to say, Anna Lisette says in here, worst part is Holeman and his associates probably believe they did the right things. There's a problem, and it's actually it's a problem I've identified with judges for the most part. But I think it's probably true of prosecutors and cops too. They think that there's this doing the right thing out there, and that's a moral judgment, and you can then go do whatever you want. And they don't realize, especially judges, but also maybe especially prosecutors, and also especially law enforcement officers, that like the right thing is following the law, folks.
Right.
And
Um,
I mean, that's the hat you wear. And all of these, and that's the other thing. All of these people have just enormous amounts of discretion. I mean, there are legal ways to do the right thing.
Yep. Yep. So Nicole's question, I think that this has been asked a few times. Sorry, I'm back to looking at the let's look at the chat, and then you've got shit to do, I've got shit to do. So, but I did want to, Nicole has a question that, did we answer who has standing to file anything about all of this?
We didn't, and I'm not going to go there today.
Okay. All right.
Working on it.
Yeah, so that's just because legally you're trying to figure out what I'm guessing, right? Who can do what. But I do think though, it doesn't have to be, and I could be wrong, it does not have to be Andrew Baldwin or Brad Rosie.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay. I think
Absolutely not.
that's mission critical. Okay. So,
Yeah. No, no.
so,
It would be helpful to have their cooperation for whoever does it, but
oh, sure. I mean,
they could. Well, either of them could.
yes, of course. Or, Hennessy or what. So wait a minute. I'm just trying to see. Mm, I mean, I'm trying to think what else? What else did we want to talk about? Anything? I mean, I think that honestly, I'm going to share. I mean, there is this 3-page extraction from the report. Why don't we read through this and then we'll be done? Because I think that I got caught up in my underwear about this. So this is from, and again, this is all Michael's fault, but, and I can share this, like I said, with All Eyes or whoever I'll share it so people can have it. But so this is the follow-up narrative report from Holeman on the 16th of October.
Well, let me say, in the parts that we're not releasing, there's nothing that undermines anything we've said about any of this. It's not like we're saving the best. Like there are these bad.
No, hell no. To me, the best part was the one page that says, that Holeman just spills the beans. I mean, he just says it all in the first page, and that's out there in the wild. I, released that crack in a while ago. So whatever. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. And just so everybody knows, I don't have access to all this. I'm only being whatever. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Okay.
You're being gatekept by a jerk.
No, you're not a jerk. No, look. Okay. Okay. So where we left off. So they both told me, Kane and Greenlee told me that Mr. Cohen was willing to talk. I made arrangements to meet with Ms. Kane and Mr. Greenlee at the Indiana State Police Post on Monday, 10/9/2023 at 1100 hours. Monday, 10/9/2023. I met with Kane and Greenlee at Indiana State Patrol Post in Lafayette, conducted an audio videotaped statement. Where is it? The following is a summary of that interview. Ms. Kane and Mr. Greenlee gave me copies of screenshots, Jesus Christ, of Mr. Cohen and Fortson's communications about the Delphi double homicide. They also gave me copies of the photos that were sent to them by Mr. Cohen. A copy of all the documents given to me will be attached to this incident report. They told me that Mr. Cohen thought that Mr. Fortson was an attorney, or that was getting his information from an attorney or someone working for Mr. Baldwin. They stated that in the messages between Mr. Cohen and Mr. Fortson, he would indicate that Andy told him this or that. For example, Andy told me he was dropping off Discovery at Allen County. Andy said he received Libby's phone download and it looks good for Rick. Andy said the judge is granting a suppression hearing, but Andy isn't sure if it's a Frank's hearing. See copies of the messages for the exact comments. Miss Kane and Mr. Greenlee told me that Mitch Westerman was the person that they interviewed in the past about Mr. Baldwin. They believed that the information was being leaked from Mr. Baldwin was coming from Mr. Westerman. Mr. Westerman worked for Mr. Baldwin from 2015 to 2019. They provided me with a copy of Mr. Fortson's Facebook friends, and Mr. Westerman was one of the names on the list. Miss Kane and Mr. Greenlee gave me the contact information for Mr. Cohen and said he's willing to speak with me. They also gave me Rick Snae's information. Mr. Snee had also reviewed the same photos that Mr. Kane and Mr. Greenlee received. I concluded the interview. A copy of the audio video tape statement will be provided to the prosecutor for review. Where is it? At approximately 11:38 hours, I conducted an audio taped interview, with Mr. Cohen. I identified myself and obtained Mr. Cohen's date of birth and address. Mr. Cohen admitted to sending pictures of the crime scene to Miss Kane and Mr. Greenlee. Mr. Cohen told me that he hadn't slept in days. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Jesus Christ. Mr. Cohen told me he hadn't slept in days and felt bad for sending the pictures. He stated that he had given everything to Miss Kane and Mr. Greenlee. He also said he deleted everything. I asked him where he got the photos, and he said Robert Fortson. I asked who he was, and he said he didn't know. He told me he thought it was an attorney working for Mr. Baldwin. That is fucking bullshit. And we know that. But anyway, I asked who he was, and he said he didn't know, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't know him personally, and that he was communicating him through only about the Delphi double homicides. He did tell me that Fortson may have contacted him because he had reposted information from Brandon Woodhouse. Fortson contacted him around the time of the motion was filed from the defense. Interesting. That I had not known. Interesting. Fortson contacted him around the time the motion was filed from the defense. Does he mean the Franks motion?
Probably.
Okay. Well, that would make sense. Sorry. He also said he deleted everything. Sure. He said that Fortson was telling him about information in the motion before it was made public. Mr. Cohen said they were communicating on Reddit and Facebook Messenger. He said that Mr. Fortson donated $500 to his daughter's Make-A-Wish Foundation. Side note, Jason Blair of Oh My God, I just took down the totality of the gray lady with all my lying liars who lie, journalist friend of Murder Sheet and Prosecutor's Podcast, who was an intermediary for Mark Robert Cohen, also donated $200 to this cause. But I believe you all already fucking knew that. These people. Mr. Cohen said that Mr. Fortson sent a picture of the tree first and then a sketch of the girls. Okay. Where's that? He sent actual photos of the girls a few days later on Reddit. The other photos were sent to Mr. Cohen on Facebook. He makes it sound like there's just so many photos. Mr. Cohen said he wasn't sure, but some photos were sent through Reddit and some through Facebook, but he gave Mr. Greenlee his entire Facebook conversation. However, the Reddit page has been deleted. Okay. Mr. Cohen told me that this morning Mr. Fortson contacted him and said he needed to talk with him and told Mr. Cohen to delete everything. Mr. Cohen said that he believed Mr. Fortson was an attorney who worked with Mr. Baldwin. Oh my God, this is such bullshit. I asked if he had Mr. Fortson's phone number and he said no. Mr. Cohen said that Mr. Fortson only tried to call him on Facebook this morning. At approximately 12:47 hours, I concluded the audio taped interview. A copy of the interview will be given to the prosecutor for review. Would love to see that. At approximately 12:55, I contacted Rick Snee. Audio taped interview. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Miss DeBrune, we went through all of this. Where she says she received photos from Lordless Warrior. That was Robert Fortson. One moment. Pause for Wambulance. On Monday, 10/9/2023, I attempted to contact Robert Fortson and left a message on his voicemail. The voicemail said, "This is Robert Fortson. Please leave a message." I contacted another number that I had for Mr. Fortson, and the person called me back. He identified himself as Bob Fortson, the father of Robert Fortson. He said that they would call and let his son know and have him call me back. Mr. Bob Fortson told me that his son Robert works at Fort Wayne Air Force Base. I emailed rfortson1@att.net. I did not receive any contact from Mr. Fortson. On Tuesday, 10/10/2023, I went to the Fort Wayne Air Force Base to locate and interview Robert Fortson. At approximately 14:30 hours, I met with Mr. Fortson in the administrative building on the Air Force Base. I explained to him that I wanted to talk to him about the crime scene photos that he had received and released. Interesting. Received and released to Mr. Cohen. He stated he wanted to speak with an attorney. I explained again the fact that the judge was upset and wanted everyone that had crime scene photos to turn them in, or she would issue an order for contempt of court. Mr. Fortson told me he didn't have anything like that and wanted to speak to an attorney. I concluded the interview. A copy of the audio video statement will be provided to the prosecutor. I escorted Mr. Fortson to his vehicle and retrieved a business card of mine from my vehicle. I gave Mr. Fortson my business card and requested he have his attorney call me as soon as possible. Where's the video? On Wednesday morning, 10/11/2023, I was contacted by Prosecutor McCleland informing me that Mr. Baldwin and Mr. Rosie need to provide a statement involving the information and photos that were leaked. I attempted to call Mr. Baldwin several times and left at least 2 messages requesting that he contact me to set up a time we could meet. He never returned my calls. Good. I contacted Mr. Rosie and requested to meet with him and get his statement. He told me he was not comfortable giving me a statement. I asked why. He acknowledges attacking my character publicly. I asked why, and he acknowledges attacking my character publicly. Okay, I told him that I was a professional and that people attack my character all the time. What the fuck? What is this all about? I didn't read this. I told him that I was a professional enough to collect his statement, document it, and turn it over to the prosecution. He again refused to give me a statement. I told him I would have another detective contact him and set up a time. I contacted Detective Rector and requested him to contact Mr. Baldwin and Mr. Rosie and obtain recorded statements from both of them. Wow. That's hilarious. Okay. Now here's another one. Interesting. On Wednesday, 10/3/2023, I approximately 12:40 hours, I met with Tahara Eilenfeld. Miss Eilenfeld had emailed Prosecutor McCleland stating she received crime scene photos. This one's really interesting to me. I conducted an audio videotape statement with Miss Eilenfeld. She followed the following summary of the interview. Miss Eilenfeld stated she received them from Tyler Carpenter. I don't know who that is. She was sent 3 photos, one of Libby, one of Abby, and one with blood on a tree. Mr. Carpenter sent them to her by telegram. She told me the screenshot looked like they were from Ruckus, who she believes is George Rye. She went on to tell me that there is a group spreading false information about this case. She believes the defense is encouraging people in this group to continue to spread false information. She stated she was in that group but was kicked out. This makes a lot of fucking sense now, doesn't it, everybody? Miss Eilenfeld deleted the photos on her phone in front of me. I concluded the interview at approximately 12:50 hours. A copy of the audio videotape statement will be given to the prosecutor for review. Where is it? On 10/12/2023, in the early morning, I saw an email to contact Sergeant Robbie Rubel from the Fishers Police Department about apparent suicide. I called Mr. Sergeant Rubel, and he stated that Robert Fortson had committed suicide and had my business card. Mr. Fortson's wife told them that he was upset with something about sharing information on the Delphi double homicides. I asked Sergeant Rubel to send me a copy of their investigation when they have it completed. I have nothing further to report at this time. Thoughts? Oh, everybody's getting a copy of it.
Yeah.
I,
So spin out why the Tara Eilenfeld thing is so interesting to you.
because she's behind the scenes in all sorts of text messages talking about this shit, which also ended up in the hands of Murder Sheet for that whole mudslinging festival that they had over you and Kara and Bob being a shill for, oh yeah, up to her eyeballs, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. I don't know. Yeah, it's nothing. Look, the place that, so we don't know how many pictures Cohen gave Murder Sheet. We don't even know. So, and we don't know.
Yeah, we have to bring it back. Bring it back.
And we know Holeman said Murder Sheet sent 9. They only listed 7. Maybe in their book they left a couple out. I don't know. Seems unlikely. So yeah, I mean, I look, Cohen, I don't know where these pictures came from, who they came from. We have the Prosecutors podcast talking about pictures in January 2023. We've got Carter talking about pictures in February 2023, in response to which Nix asks for a protective order. And yeah, I mean, it's just, it's unclear where the pictures in Exhibit 5. So we don't know where the pictures the Murder Sheet had came from. We don't know where the pictures that were in Exhibit 5 came from. But the one thing we kind of know is, at least absent proof, there's nothing that Westerman did out there.
Right. Yeah. Which is what this whole thing was based on. Right? Was the word.
Oh yeah.
Was, and I'm pulled back up the can you take a look at those documents? The photos from Anya and Kevin. I really do hope people go back and read, because honestly it's grosser every time I look at it, truly. And I know you don't really have a statement to make about, Greenlee's role as a lawyer, but man, I'm offended on behalf of the law. I'm offended that we know that Mark Robert Cohen in Alive with Peggy O and Criminality said that he contacted, or not he contacted, but that Murder Sheet actually reached out to them. And I think that there might be some other communications out there where, we know that Jason Blair mentioned that he put Mark Robert Cohen in touch with Murder Sheet. He hit on his but the part of that is that it's not said, is that it was because he was a lawyer. And I think that that bothers me a lot. It bothers me that, well, so many levels, but looking at the testimony and drilling down in, I mean, I think I've said this before, and I can't believe I'm going to say it again, but maybe, just maybe, Murder Sheet was duped. But man, oh man, if they ran with it, didn't they? Do you think I'm giving them too much of the benefit of the doubt? Because this feels bad.
I don't know if they were duped. The thing, I mean, I've been screaming since I got on. So I got into the contempt thing just on the procedural stuff way back. So Dave Hennessy had already shown up, and I got in touch with him saying that this contempt thing's being done all wrong. Do you want me to write something? And he said, sure. ran it by him, and he said, "Great, file it." So I showed up on February 7th. I don't think it was available till the 8th.
Yep.
And I never. The thing I was on. I mean, I never saw the photos that were allegedly leaked that were going into the case. That was all Dave. He was collecting the stuff. Basically, what my students and I did was we went through all the internet crap.
Yep.
And I mean, we're talking about tons of it. I think it was like 300 megabytes of stuff. And screenshots don't take up that much room. You can get an idea of how much of it there was. But once I saw leaked pictures,
You're talking about actually seeing them.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
they were allegedly leaked, right? And so before the hearing, I actually sent Hennessy copies of the pictures. Remember earlier I mentioned that I and others had taken pictures in a prosecutor's file up in Gary. Well, it was in Crown Point, but and I know what pictures of pictures look like, and the pictures that were sent to me that were supposedly leaked pictures were not pictures of pictures. And so I sent Hennessy an email saying, here's what pictures of pictures look like, man. These aren't these are the leaked pictures. This stuff isn't from Westerman.
Yep.
So were the murder sheet duped? I don't know. Maybe they didn't notice they weren't pictures of pictures. I don't know what they were sent. I don't know what. Look, the 9 pictures they sent Holeman could have had nothing to do. I mean, it could be anything that they were duped. They really didn't pay attention to the pictures. They just sent 9 pictures they got from Cohen onto Holeman. It could be they had 9. They already had stuff from some other source, and they passed it on as having come from Cohen. I don't think Holeman ever confirmed that the pictures he got from the murder sheet. I mean, I think there's a place where he says he described them to Cohen, maybe, and he said, yeah, that, and that. Again, we don't know how many pictures Holeman did that for. I just, there's stuff we can't know from the outside. What we can know is, because both defense lawyers have said it, we didn't redact any pictures. What we can know is that the Frank's memo pictures were not pictures of pictures. Those were the Frank's memo pictures. So and yeah, I like how it got this far. I don't know. It's and I I think I've said this to you before. This is just, and I said it earlier. This is such a prefiguring of Rick's trial. I mean, how did they get away with this?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Nicole asked, so why did Westerman admit to having taken them, or did he not? No, I think Westerman probably took pictures. I'm just saying there's been no massive leak, and they weren't the pictures used at the contempt hearing.
Right.
And so the interesting thing is, and here's the thing. Are they being so? Why not? Even if they weren't leaked, I mean, the contempt is like not letting them. I mean, unless McCleland is trying to say, oh, they intentionally tried to get this out there to, I don't know, poison the jury pool or whatever. Maybe that's what he was saying. or implying, you know, maybe the contempt is just letting Westerman take the pictures, whatever happened to them, whether they leaked or not.
Right.
And
Well,
they could have made that case.
yeah. Right. And so I think I think that there's all of this stuff. We're sticking to what we do know. But I do think it's important to point out that there were, you know, photos being circulated, whether or not they were crime scene photos or whatever, since the time they found the girls' bodies. We know that was reported, and you listed a couple of these. Carter was aware. You know, the prosecutor's podcast certainly was aware, because they made apparently an email to Delphi police. We also know that Mitch Westerman signed an affidavit that says he took photos from a table, pictures of the photos from a table. All that stuff can still exist in the same space, but I think Westerman, to me, is a red herring at this point for this particular I think it, you know, I think it's interesting question. I have my theories, but as to why he signed that, and why it was so vague, and why the charges were dropped, and why he asked for a jury trial. I think those are all very suggestive. But the bottom line is that there was no connection proved from anything that was entered either in filings or at the contempt hearing that showed that those photos, because they never got photos from his phone, they never got photos from his iCloud. We don't know anything about the provenance of those photos, except that they came from Anya and Kevin. So that's all we know.
Well, hang on. I don't think, no. I don't think we
Okay.
know that. So what we know, did Holeman testify at the hearing that the pictures in Exhibit 5 came from them?
Yes,
Okay, then I guess we do know they came from.
we
Well,
do know that.
again, do
Right.
do we know that?
We know that that's what is being told to the court as truth.
I understand, but we also know that it's being said to the court as truth that the defense redacted pictures with ovals.
Exactly.
Well, so all I'm saying is we don't. So Kevin and Anya have not seen the pictures in Exhibit 5, and nobody's asked them, are these pictures that you sent to Jerry? And nobody's asked them, did the pictures you have, were any of the pictures you had redacted? We don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sure would be great to have that audio interview.
It would. And I've tried to get it from a likely source, and the likely source doesn't have it.
I know. Yeah.
And again, it's something that the 3 or 4 things or 5 that we actually have should be enough for a special prosecutor to open up an investigation, and
Yep.
that person, he or she, get into that.
Yes, exactly. And so that's just it. It's like it's putting together enough information to make a file an information. And then, you make it so it's, succinct. And, I've got my little outline up there. And we didn't even get into the possibility of obstruction of justice or filing false reports, and we shan't today, but that's also something that's out there in the floating in my back, in the back of my head. So, so I mean, I think I need to wrap this up. I mean, what do you think we have, what else
Yeah,
did
I
we,
think we pretty well. I think we've gone over it pretty. I mean, if somebody wanted to ask a bunch of questions, if somebody wanted to ask a few questions down in the chat, happy to answer some questions. But other than that, I don't think I think we're starting to go over stuff
yeah,
again, so to
yeah,
speak.
we're just sort of navel gazing at this point. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, I don't,
So Royal We says that's why MS wasn't put on the stand. You know, I mean, one of the things you have to realize, Dave Hennessy was really, the information was filed the end of January. The hearing was set for March 18th. He asked for more time. He never had time to investigate this case. I mean, it was a criminal prosecution, is what it was, and he was given 6 weeks basically to do it. He did depose Holeman, but he wanted to get Baudet. Various people he wanted to get, but he didn't have the time to do it. He asked for. He even said, "Can we do this like after Rick's trial is over, please? This really doesn't have anything to do with Rick's trial, and there are more important things." And Gull said no. He asked for a continuance.
he's saying that's why Nick didn't. Royal We is saying, I mean, that's how.
I understand that, and what I'm getting to
Okay.
is that I think that had he had more time. So my guess, so I do know that Hennessy heard at least the recording of the interview with Fortson, but I don't know if he heard the interview with the murder sheet. And I think, given more time, he would have deposed them.
Absolutely. I believe that too. I mean, and that's part of it. And it's like, this is not excuse making, it's just facts.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm not. No, I'm not. But it's also not attacking anybody. I mean,
Right, right.
stuff they
Except
didn't
for the
do,
people
and
who deserve attacking. And that's the, I really hope the McColemans takes off. So is there any chance of anyone ever being held to account for any of the shady stuff that happened in the Delphi sphere? I have my doubts.
we'll see. We'll see.
Because, and people people do need to keep in mind that, the movement on Rick Allen's case and through the Court of Appeals, et cetera, right? That there's also, I always think, why is everybody so interested in reading court documents? Well, because it's as much a conversation with the court as it is with the public. And so we're just having a public conversation about something. I lost him. About something that may or may not be able to go forward in a filing that can be filed independently of anything going on in appeals, anything going on in post-conviction. So technically, this could be filed tomorrow with all the appropriate evidence. Hang on. Where did he go? I'm trying to get him back on here.
Dave,
Yep.
sorry, it wouldn't be me if I didn't hit some button that kicking
Yeah.
myself out.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was just wrapping it up.
Yeah.
So basically this is this should be more of a public conversation, in my opinion, that there's seriously conflicting information out there between, I mean, fortunately, Murder Sheet has put it in their book, and it's out there for the world to see, and it doesn't comport with what Holeman is saying. The information for contempt that Nick McCleland filed is just, there's there's contemptuous behavior on that alone, and then the two things that we know for sure about the redactions and that not well and truly not coming from the defense, because we know they didn't use redaction, that's enough. I mean, there's certainly more, but that in and of itself is enough.
Yeah, it is. Should be anyway. We'll see. I mean, we'll see if something gets filed. We'll see if it's enough. I mean, but it's going to be hard to, the other side, as it were, is going to fight like hell, because at the moment they're all heroes, right?
Yep. They sure are.
And
they're crime cons, number one cons.
Well, I will say, I think Nick McCleland's up for re-election next year, and I hope somebody's taking out full paid ads. Vote for anyone else.
Yeesh. But he said he wanted to be a judge.
Oh, but he wanted to be, but he passed up that opportunity so that he could pursue justice for Libby and Abby, don't you know?
Right. Grease fire. Straight grease fire. Woo! Okay.
And
well,
look. I mean, my problem with all of this, both. I mean, these people. One of two things is true. Going to Rick's trial, either these people actually believed the stuff they were putting into evidence, in which case they shouldn't have their jobs, or
right.
two, it was all an intentional. It was all intentional misdeeds. I don't know. I mean, hard to say it wasn't intentional for me, but you look at things that the lynch mob saying, I'm not getting into the drama here, this is just a fact. You can't, if they actually believe what they say, they don't have, there's no thought there. I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the people who think Rick is guilty because he confessed. I understand for some people that's powerful evidence. But the other stuff, I mean, just the way Yellow Jacket has destroyed any idea that was Rick's car on the Hoosier Harvest Store video. I mean,
I know.
And that should have been clear. That, I mean, these people are, and the same with the pictures. I mean, I don't know what. I mean, they did get away with it, but how do you put on a picture that has both an oval redaction and a rectangular redaction, and say, oh, they used ovals, we used rectangles, so this came from the defense? I mean, how can you say that with a straight face?
Yeah.
And how, I mean, but it seemed to be missed on you know, Hennessy on, I mean, Brad Rosie said to me, the one with the, so Brad Rosie said that there was, on the stand, he says there's a picture he didn't think he'd ever seen before. I showed him the picture of the oval and the, with the oval and rectangle redaction. He said he wasn't certain, but he said, yeah, I think that was the picture I was shown. And it's like, so it gets past the client, it gets past the lawyer, it gets past the judge. I mean, this is being tried to the judge, right? And
Yep.
so the exhibit is handed to her. And why isn't she asking, like, why is this from the defense if this is an oval and a rectangle? Where did this come from? I mean,
I mean,
I
yeah,
mean, it's objectionable on relevance grounds. It doesn't, because it has both, it doesn't make it more likely that it came from the defense. It came from someplace friggin' else.
right. Right. Yep. I agree. I mean, yeah. Lord have mercy. All right. Well,
Yeah,
I think,
time to. I think we have flayed this horse.
yes, and I think too that that my my goal. Oh God, fucking damn it! Hang on a second. Okay. Uh. Uh. uh so my only thing was to really just impress upon people, hopefully, that this contempt thing is an actual thing, that there is actual recourse, that there is evidence, that there is a good faith basis already to show contempt on the part of the state in this filing and in the contempt hearing against Baldwin and Rosie. So when people say it's not a big deal, or when they eventually say it's not a big deal, tell them to go fuck themselves. Really. I mean, because then guess what? You hate America. I don't know. Tell them that. How about that?
Well, well, I will say, I will say, if it ever gets, I will say,
Yeah.
well, I, I is,
Oh God.
is
What are
that
you going to say?
is that in response to No Pings Day?
Yes.
We're gonna keep the geofence information out. It's No Pings Day.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. Why do you hate America? But
yeah,
seriously, man, Jesus Christ, it's a
I,
truly just please ask them to fuck straight off, because the thing is that it does matter. This shit matters, right? I mean, even if it's not in this case, the
can you
actual.
can you imagine if this had all been done at the contempt hearing? Can you imagine the impeachment of Holman at the trial?
Oh my God. Oh, I mean, it would have been a thing of beauty. You know? I Yeah, I know. So yes, if people don't believe this is a big deal, they hate America. That's all I have to say about that. And dogs.
And
They hate puppies
I
and
think the
kitties.
last thing I want to add is if this thing ever does get filed by somebody,
Uh-huh.
um, I think Angela should reconstitute her channel as The Unraveling.
Yes.
It's all going to unravel. There's other stuff substantively on the case that's happening that's really interesting.
Well, that's nebulous.
It was intended to be.
God damn it. All right. Well, whatever. So yay. Hopefully this can be something that actually pushes the needle forward a little bit and engages people in a way that causes them to think twice about taking the narrative of any state official or any state actor at face value. You know, I think that skepticism is really critical, and here it's absolutely warranted, and it needs to be scrutinized. So yeah. Anyway, all right. So everybody, you can you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So I will smell every single one of you later. And as always, I appreciate everybody, and I think you're the worst in